Derek Carr went to Fresno State. We don't pay any attention to him. He didn't come in with a high profile. But I watched that game yesterday, Howie. He outperformed Big Ben. He moved around. Gruden's Henry Ruggs now looks like he can play a little bit. What your interpretation of what you've seen from the Raiders so far?
Well, I thought Henry Ruggs was in the witness protection program out there in Vegas. Where did Henry Ruggs go? To me, the thing that opens the whole offense up, the running game, the underneath. I mean, they targeted Waller 19 times week one. He is, and you could make the same case for Waller. I mean, Waller is as dynamic and talented a tight end as we have in the league, and we saw that on display last night, obviously with Kansas City. But Henry Ruggs gives you something that I think every offense needs is he breaks the huddle, he's out wide, he throws the fear of God into your secondary.
Sure.
He can change the game in one play, and I haven't seen enough of that. And I think with Derek, it's a couple of things. One, you got to win. And, when we talk about the great quarterbacks and, we can go down the list, they all have one thing in common. They all win.
Yeah.
And they're all uber competitive. They're demonstrative. They demand excellence from the minute they walk in the building right through to Sunday. And they're the same way Monday through Friday and Saturday. And I think when you have a head coach who's also larger than life, as John Gruden is, I think, the numbers are there for Derek Carr. They come from behind wins, the yardage, the completion percentage, all that. The next step is winning. And I think, when you win, I think people will come. You build it, they'll come. They open the stadium up with fans for the first time, and it was an amazing week one victory. And I think in many ways that can kind of, snowball. It has a snowball effect when you win that kind of game, come from behind, last play of the game. Baltimore's had success with the blitz. They go zero blitz. They know the call. They pick it up. It's a one-man route. Carr's under pressure. He makes the throw. The throw he made to Ruggs yesterday was amazing.
Yeah. So, I've watched Kansas City in the first 2 weeks. And, we know between Andy Reid and Mahomes and Kelsey, I don't worry about that side of the ball, but I've also watched for 2 weeks in a row. The Browns and the Ravens make Mahomes a spectator. Is that just because Cleveland and Baltimore are the two best run teams in the league? Or do you see, when you watch Kansas City, do you see a team that will stop everybody from running the ball?
I think that's a really good point. I think the two teams you're talking about, the Browns and the Ravens, the Ravens, they have a 300-pound fullback. Yeah. I mean, they're not fooling anyone with what they want to do. Lamar Jackson is as dynamic a runner, and it's as unique an offense as you could run in the NFL. And everyone, you have to have a plan, and everyone needs to be in position. And then he gets you in space, and space could be 2-3 yards. And he makes great athletes look ordinary. And I think both of those quarterbacks last night are two of the most uber competitive quarterbacks in football. Competitiveness just oozes out of both of them. And I think at times they take chances, and that flip in the end zone, certainly I'd be having a conversation with them about the flip in the end zone. But, at the end of the game, John Harbaugh, he made the decision that through whatever you want to call it, the numbers, and he asked the question, I think it was a rhetorical question, Lamar, do you want to go for it? And he did the same thing versus Seattle a couple of years ago, and he knew the answer to the question. And Lamar knows, and he's comfortable with the fact that, like Patrick Mahomes, I want the ball in my hands. And it's easy right now on Monday and say, in second guess, handing the ball off. But you have to trust your running back. And, you're in field goal position at the end of the game. It's tempting just not to take the ball out of Patrick Mahomes' hands. Although both of those quarterbacks, because they're so competitive and they're so confident, they both made big mistakes during the course of that game yesterday.
So the NFC West has explosive Arizona, Russell in Seattle, the Rams, 49ers defense has just shut teams down. If I said,
Wow.
I mean, the whole division, is there a team in that division, though, that you think their style wears well for 17 weeks? If I said to you, let's go to week 13, 14, because, Big Ben looks old now in week 2. I don't even want to see him in week 14. But is there a style?
No.
Is there a style in the NFC West that you think the style wears better long term?
First, to go back to Big Ben, one of my favorite players to watch over the course of his career, remarkable player. It's one, and I had a defensive line coach in Earl Leggett, and Michael had the same defensive line coach, and he said something prophetic. When it goes quickly.
Yeah.
And here's the problem: you don't know when it's going to go. It could go in May, it could go in August, it could go in September, and Ben looks like a guy who needs a lot of support, run game, defense, all of that, and it's tough. But when we get to the West, I think the quarterback for the Rams changes everything. Is the offensive line as good as they were when they were pounding people with Gurley, and Gurley was great? No. Is the running back, stable there as good as it was when Gurley was great and everything was running off play action? No. But the quarterback, he opens so much of your game plan up, and he makes extraordinary throws and decisions, and the defense is a championship defense. And I think when you're talking about the best teams in football, you'd be hard-pressed to say, I think Tampa Bay right now and maybe the Rams. Going back to Kansas City in terms of them stopping people and being run on. I don't want to go all over the place here, but you look back, Steve Spagnuolo is the defense coordinator there. And in that year that the Giants won the Super Bowl with Michael and upset the Patriots, they started that year 0-2, and that defense gave up record numbers. Steve will get it figured out, and Andy addressed that last night, and I think very directly in his post-game press conference. Mistakes were made, the tackling, the plan, being in the right place. The expectations in buildings like Tampa Bay, now with Tom Brady, in Baltimore historically, in Pittsburgh, in Kansas City, the expectations are so high, and your commitment has to be so high, and you just have to think that between Andy and Steve, they'll get it right. It's not like they don't have players. Tampa Bay struggled on defense so far this year, but Tom it defies logic. We'll never see anything like it.
What do you make of Brady? Give me your thoughts on what do you make of it? Looked pretty effortless yesterday.
Well, it's kind of like Indiana Jones. He chose wisely, going back to the initial decision. And, they're loaded down there on offense. And he has an embarrassing wealth of talent around him. Gronk to me at this point last year looked like a guy who had retired for a year and wasn't healthy.
Right.
It took him 6-7 weeks. I think it took 7-8 weeks for them last year to figure out what Tom liked and how the marriage of Bruce's offense and Byron Leftwich would marry up with Tom. And everyone talks about Tom really kind of came around on throwing the ball deep. He didn't like to do that. No, Tom doesn't want to get hit. Plus, he's in his 40s. And last year, we come to find out he's playing with an MCL tear that required surgery in the offseason. 1, he's healthy. 2, they had an offseason. They had OTAs. And now when they throw the ball deep, which Tom is doing exceptionally well, they're doing it off a play-action pass, and it's 6-7 in protection initially, and Tom can make the throw. One thing that Bruce Arians' quarterbacks had in common, wherever he was, whether it was Arizona, Pittsburgh, Indianapolis, he's throwing the ball deep, and the quarterbacks are getting hit.
Yeah.
There's no risk it, no biscuit, all that, and that's real. But Tom, I think, he kind of crafted a new style of Bruce Arians' offense, and I think they both kind of met in the middle. But that protection now with 6-7 and protection on deep balls allows Tom the opportunity to stand tall, make the throw, survey